Only 9% of insurers sit in the ideal zone where AI is both trusted and truly trustworthy. That's a wake-up call. In this episode, we're tackling why so many organizations fall short and what it takes to get into that elite 9%. I'm Franklin Manchester, and this is Brewing Curiosity, Insurance Unfiltered. Insurance is a trust business, and for insurers, it represents an unbreakable promise. In SaaS's Data and AI report, The Trust Imperative, we've uncovered startling insights into the imbalance between enterprise AI capabilities and corresponding safeguards like AI governance, explainability, or transparency. In this episode, we're focusing on fairness and transparency in underwriting, pricing, and claims models. AI learns from human-generated data, so it can inherit and even amplify existing biases if not carefully designed and monitored. Joining me today are two experts in such matters, Kristi Boyd, our Senior Trustworthy AI Specialist here at SaaS, and Dr. Iain Brown, the Global Head of Data Science at SaaS, to discuss trust, transparency, and AI. Iain, I'd like to come to you first. Why does today's topic of trustworthy data and AI matter?
Thanks, Franklin, and it's great to be here. One of the reasons this topic matters so much in insurance is that your models don't just predict outcomes, they influence who gets access to cover, at what price, and how quickly someone gets help at a vulnerable moment. That means technical performance is necessary, but I suggest not sufficient. You need to be able to explain decisions to internal stakeholders, regulators, and customers, and you need the ability to detect when a model starts drifting into unfairness as data, behavior, and economic conditions change over time. In my experience working with insurers, I tend to frame the challenge in three layers. Firstly, data integrity. Are we using the right data with traceability and quality controls? Secondly, model integrity. Have we tested for bias, robustness, explainability, and stability? And then finally, I'd argue most importantly, decision integrity. Once deployed, are we governing, monitoring, and escalating appropriately? If you get those layers right, you don't just reduce risk, you build the kind of trust that insurance depends on.
Wow, thanks, Iain. Fantastic insights. Kristi, I'd like to come to you next. As an expert in data ethics and policy, what observations have you made about the insurance industry and its capacity to wield AI safely?
Sure. I think the insurance industry has a great capacity to wield AI safely and responsibly. If you think about it, to use AI safely, you must understand the benefits, the risks, mitigation strategies available, and who may or may not be harmed. And those concepts are at the very core of most insurance companies. Insurance has been having conversations about probability, fairness, accountability for long before AI, the way we think of it now, has been showing up. And because the industry is so heavily regulated already, there's plenty of governance frameworks to start with. That gives insurers a head start that a lot of other industries are still trying to get to. But I do think it goes further than just the capacity to use AI safely. As Iain mentioned, these models have a real impact on real humans and often at a difficult or a vulnerable time in their lives. That means we shouldn't only be asking, hey, do insurers have the capability to wield AI safely? But we should also be asking, do they feel the responsibility to do so? The stakes for real people are just too high for this to be purely a capacity conversation. Most of us have no idea how decisions are made about our premiums or claims are being made, and that opacity can become a liability. But if transparency done well, it can actually become a differentiator. In that context, explainability isn't just a technical, nicety to have. It's actually how trust gets built. And there's a real opportunity here too that I don't want companies to miss. Insurers that get this right, who can really demonstrate how their AI is fair, explainable, governed, they have a chance to deepen that trust with clients and policyholders that they have.
That's a great point. And as a follow-up, how would you compare or contrast the industry's strengths and weaknesses against other industries?
Compared to other industries, insurance is reasonably well positioned already, but I would caution from resting on our laurels a little bit too much. On the strength side, insurers, like I mentioned, are used to regulation and governance, right? We speak the language, or you speak the language of documentation, explainability, transparency. Audit trails are second nature. We've talked financial fairness assessments, bias mitigations. That translates really well into what responsible AI requires. That proactive risk identification, that consistent governance, understanding of ethical standards and values, and clear accountability when and if things go wrong. A lot of industries are trying to build that from scratch, and that gives insurance a good foundation and gives them a leg up. The challenge, I think, extends when you introduce those more complex models like generative AI that we don't quite have the same familiarity with. We don't quite have the same rigor behind quite yet. Another gap that I really see is within the workforce preparedness. Not just talking about the data science team, right? I'm talking about the underwriter that's acting on a model's output, or a claims handler that has a nifty little app that helps them do their job, but they don't quite understand how the model came to the conclusion that it did, why the decision is being provided in the framework it is, or the executive that's signing off on a deployment for a proof of concept without asking about or considering the limitations of that POC. If people closest to the decisions don't have enough AI fluency to ask good questions, to advocate for fairness, or to recognize when something's just not aligned with the values of an organization, then no amount of technical governance is going to help close that gap on its own. We can't just be, opining on our ethics. We have to actually practice them. And if that gap exists, and when it exists, I think it's going to show up in one of two ways. We'll either see too much over-reliance, where your underwriter is just doing what the model is saying to do without using critical thinking skills or without applying some intentionality behind it. Or we might run into underutilization of the technology, where we're ignoring what the model is saying completely because, well, I don't understand what it's saying. It's a black box. It can't be that helpful. Neither one of them is a good outcome. And so I think investing in literacy to kind of bring it full circle across the whole organization, not just the technical teams, is one of the highest leverage opportunities for an insurer right now.
Excellent advice, Kristi. Thank you. Dr. Brown, I'd like to come to you next. What are some tools or techniques insurers could explore to create safeguards against AI bias in their underwriting claims or pricing processes?
Yes, a useful way I've found to think about safeguards is prevent, detect, and then correct, and do that across the data, across the model development, and across the deployment, to my 3 points earlier. First, prevent that bias upstream by treating data chain of custody as a non-negotiable piece of work. Document where data has come from, what it represents, and what it doesn't represent as well, which is just as important. Then run data quality checks so you're not accidentally baking any of this bias in via missingness or historical process artifacts, or potentially proxies for protected characteristics as well. On the modeling side, you can apply fairness assessment and bias detection during the development phase, not just once at the end, and use techniques like feature review, constrained modeling, or even segmentation strategies that are defensible for actuarial and compliance teams. Second, detect issues with transparency tooling. Pair performance metrics with explainable machine learning, surrogate interpretation, and counterfactual explanations to answer what drove this particular outcome in plain English, so underwriters and claims teams understand the output. And third, correct and keep it corrected. Publish model cards, documentation, implement metric monitoring for drift and fairness over time, and use the concept of champion challenger or periodic recalibration so problems don't linger into the production phase. And finally, connect the model to the decision. Where possible, use decisioning controls, thresholds, guardrails, and of course, human in the loop escalation, especially for high impact decisions like non-renewal or premium jumps, or even claim denial. I think all of these factors are important from a technology perspective to help you make those right decisions.
And Iain, as a follow-up to these thoughts you've shared, can you or have you seen any early successes in implementing these approaches you can share?
Yeah, certainly, Frank. I think early wins are usually less about one perfect model and more about a repeatable discipline in the process. A very common first success is creating a single inventory of models across underwriting, pricing, and claims with clear ownership, purpose, data sources, validation status, and those monitoring metrics that I referred to. And that may sound basic, but immediately it reduces the unknown model risk. And it makes it easier to standardize what fairness and transparency mean across different functions within an organization. Next, teams often get fast value by adding lightweight explainability to existing models. Underwriters and claims handlers don't need an academic or PhD level explanation. They need a clear, consistent rationale, the top drivers that would have changed the outcome, and whether the result is stable. That combination improves adoption and reduces internal friction. I also see insurers get traction by focusing on process efficiency outcomes first. For example, triage and prioritization in claims or workflow automation, provided they pair that with monitoring so speed doesn't come at the expense of that all-important fairness. That emphasis on efficiency as a value driver shows up strongly in the broader insurance landscape. And finally, education matters. And back to Kirsti's point on literacy, when organizations invest in trustworthy AI practices, research suggests they're more likely to see a stronger return on investment from their AI initiatives. The success is that governance stops being a blocker and it becomes a delivery accelerator because teams know what good looks like and then how to evidence it.
Wow, that's amazing advice. Thank you, Iain. Now, I'd like you both to react to the following data from the Trust Imperative report. Only 9% of insurers fall into the ideal quadrant with both high trust in AI and strong, trustworthy AI systems. What challenges does this create, and what would you do about it? Kristi, I'd like to come to you first.
Sure. I think this really highlights the tension between confidence and capability. Just to give you a very practical example, you've probably met somebody who is convinced that they can sing, they're the next Adele, they're the next Grammy winners. And they go up to that karaoke mic with confidence just oozing out of them. And then they start singing and they sound like a screeching cat, right? Confidence without capability, it's not just unhelpful or painful to your ears in the insurance world, it's actually actively dangerous. And I think that's what AI is changing and kind of facing right now as well. We're seeing research proving that generative AI can be perceived as 200% more trustworthy than traditional machine learning. Even though it's often less reliable and more prone to errors, it just feels more human. And we are hardwired to have confidence in things like communicate like us or seem like us. Now, it's not a character flaw for humanity. It's just how we're built for evolutionary purposes, if you will. But it's a real vulnerability when we talk about the AI world, because extending trust by instinct rather than through evidence is trust that's going to collapse fast and hard. There's an old adage, I think, that goes something like, the more I learn, the less I know. And that's exactly what's happening in the AI implementation governance world. Organizations that have done the least amount of work on AI governance are often the most confident in their abilities and where they stand. And the ones that are actually investing seriously start to realize just how much more there is that they can get done and get right. That's actually a healthy sign, but it doesn't mean that the gap between perceived and actual trustworthiness is wider than most people want to admit. A practical example I'll give you, an insurer might have a very strong governance around their pricing models, but almost no governance or no thinking around that AI tool that their HR team just procured, or the AI tool marketing uses to write their copy and their promotional content. They're not seeing the full picture. They're looking very siloed within the organization. And that brings us back again to literacy. The more literate we become with AI, truly literate, not just familiar with the two letters, the better equipped we are to learn and lean into building the systems that are genuinely trustworthy, that are human-centric, inclusive, transparent, robust, and again, do it deliberately across the whole organization, thinking from that trustworthy perspective.
Brilliant response. Thank you, Kristi. Iain, let's come to you next with the same question.
Yeah, thanks, Franklin. That 9% statistic is a great wake-up call. because it highlights a mismatch. Insurers may use AI or trust it, but far fewer have the end-to-end practices that make AI deserving of that trust. In the Trust Dilemma report framing, global insurance shows only 9% sitting in the quadrant where trust is high, and the trustworthy foundations are also high. As Kristi just pointed out, confidence and capability don't always move together, and that gap is where real risk emerges. The challenge this creates is twofold. First, there's a risk of over-reliance, where teams lean on models that aren't governed well enough, creating trust accidents that become reputational or regulatory events. And second, there's an underutilization, where good models do exist, but business teams don't adopt them because the decisions aren't explainable, consistent, or operationally integrated. What do we do about it? We make trust auditable. That means a unified governance layer across underwriting, pricing, and claims, clear model documentation, fairness, and explainability tests as part of a standard validation, and continuous monitoring after deployment, not quarterly, not annually, but aligned to business volatility and drift. And we need to address the shiny object problem. Research shows organizations often trust Gen AI more than traditional ML, even when safeguards lag. The fix is AI literacy plus consistent control, so trust becomes something we earn with evidence, not something we grant by default. And ultimately, the 9% don't just trust AI, they can evidence why that trust is justified.
Wow, this has been a brilliant conversation. Thank you both for speaking with us today. And if you'd like to begin your trustworthy AI journey, one place to start is by taking this free course from SAS, Responsible Innovation and Trustworthy AI, designed for anyone who wants to gain a deeper understanding about the importance of trust and responsibility in AI, analytics, and innovation. The link to the course is in the description below. Tune in to our next episode when I will be joined by Alex Semenoff and Max Samodoff to discuss the technical practices aligned with model risk management and capital solvency. And if you've enjoyed today's conversation, give us a like and subscribe to the SAS YouTube channel and ring that bell until it goes ding so you'll be notified for future episodes. In the meantime, thank you all for all you do to protect billions of people's lives and livelihoods. For SAS, I'm Franklin Manchester. Thanks for watching and stay curious.